Hi everyone, my name is Olivia Gillespie and this is my video recording to the prompt posed by Dr. Rod in our Canvas shell. How can educational leaders develop coherent systems or structures of high quality teaching and measurable learning balanced with appropriate co-curricular activities? So, wow, this was a little hard for me to think about because I actually had to go back and recollect being in K-12 and being a school leader, which was a few years ago. So it's not that far back. However, to put that in context, taking over a school that had just won a 7-0 reprieve by the district school board that was designed to close. It was decided that it was going to close until the community rallied and prompted the school board to say, hey, this is kind of unjust. Things weren't done appropriately or properly. They weren't done effectively, and we didn't have a choice to wait, an option. And so the school district decided to keep it open, brought in a new administrative team, which was my administrative team. And so we walked into a highly volatile situation, given that the school was housed in a building that was previously a comprehensive high school in that area that had shut down a few years before and was guaranteed and promised several things with the shutdown that did not occur. And so here we come in, being the 5th administration in 7 years of an innovative art school in the district. And we're new. We only had 2 of the 4 administrators that were returning, and one, he was a part of the comprehensive high school that shut down. He was also a founding administrator of the school, of the first administrative team that ended up being dissolved, obviously. And then me coming from a different district, and then another one of our leaders was, she's been tenured in the district, had she had about 45 years of experience being a teacher, an instructional coach, an athletic director, she just had all these accolades, right? She's had all this experience. And then we have the returning dean of students. So it was really different, not to mention we were the African-American team, and we were the only one in the state of Colorado. So that it really posed a little different challenge that way. And then we inherited a $500,000 budget deficit. We inherited no curriculum because it was thrown out. And then also what we inherited was the school culture that was just dismantled, and it was really destroyed. So how do you take all of that and then think about high quality teaching and measurable learning and balance that with appropriate co-curricular activities? Well, we couldn't do it, to be honest. So we started with an assessment, right? So not the assessment for students, but an assessment of what we had. What did we have? What did we have, right? Did we inherit? 2, looking at all the data, our student data, looking at who our students were, what we were getting, looking at the culture overall, our teaching staff, really bringing in different philosophies because there's 4 different administrators that are coming in. And our school was previously on the chopping block, and then it was decided that they were going to split the 6-12 model. So we were the high school team, and we were the high school team, and then we had a middle school team. And how are we going to merge this all together to make sure that we turn this school around? And so we came together as a collective team, 6-12 administrative team, and then we came together as the high school team. And so that assessment meant looking at our staff, looking at current structures. How are we going to support teachers? How is we going to, what are we going to do when you have so much stuff to focus on, right? And here we are flying the plane while building it and building the airport at the same time. And so we started with the assessment. What do we have that is returning to us that worked well? And then what is it that we're really going to need to rebuild? So that's first place. So it meant that since we had we didn't have a full staff, that meant we had to hire. So we had to institute some hiring practices and know what we wanted to look like. We wanted our school to look like, right? What culture were we going to rebuild, right? So because you can't do high quality instruction when you don't have the culture in place to do that. So that was the first system that we put in place, was our culture. So looking at those hiring practices, looking at the fact that our kids, we were averaging 117 out of school suspensions, the low attendance. Parents were not, they were very upset. They didn't care for the district. They felt mistrust and distrust of the district and anybody the district would hire and all of that. So we started with that, rebuilding the culture, getting our parents engaged, engaging the community, letting them know that we plan to be there for a while. That was our intention. That's what we thought, right, at that moment. And that we wanted to work with our community, and we needed to garner community partnerships, community engagement with our families, with the businesses there. So we got out and did this rich study of our community and what did they really want and need in terms of the programming being offered to schools. We were an art school. What does that really mean? Redefining the vision of the school. So we had to start there. And then from there, when we built that, and we spent a year building culture and regaining the trust of our parents and our community and the businesses, and letting them have this investment into our arts programming, into our school, and getting the hiring practices down and hiring a full staff, then and only then were we able to then implement our MTSS, restorative practices, making sure that our kids were like, one, they were in the building, they wanted to be there, and our attendance went up, and we started to average that first year 89% attendance across 4 grade levels, which when we were averaging 77%, that was amazing, right? We had to get the kids in the building in order to teach them. And so we instituted, attendance policies, like, we made sure we had home visits. We just did the whole thing. It was a whole gamut of different things that we did that first year to rebuild the culture, got rid of the uniforms, made sure the kids felt safe in our building, that they weren't going to be attacked, and that they wanted to be there. So that's how we were able to start, right? And so that was year 1. Year 2 was about the actual instructional programming. So then we did a reassessment about our instructional program, from our AP to how we were educating our ELLs, which was 70% of our population in the high school. So it was that, and realizing that even in our hiring practices with the consent decree that was in place, requiring us to hire teachers that were certified to teach English language learners, and making sure that every one of them had to have that certification. I kind of made a decision that, like, hey, we're in a building that we share with 4 other schools, and if we're all competing for the same pool, that's not going to work. So I did away with that and fought the district to get a more systematic ELD approach, in which it got grant money and funded the way that we did our hiring and the way that we brought in this instructional program. Fought with them to make sure, one, we went to a systematic approach in our master schedule, making sure that, yes, we did have the qualified teachers to do so, but also dividing that our ELs would get that support in every one of their classrooms, right? Not just, so that meant that, we had dedicated ELD blocks, right? So kids, based upon wherever access level they were at, they had the separate block that really catered to their needs. And then when they were able to go over into, whether it was an English language arts class, whether it was their social studies class, their science class, their social study, their math class, or even their arts class rooms, they had a paraprofessional with them that could give them that extra support in that classroom. So it was more of a concentrated effort. And so we got to see some improvement, right, based upon our tests. But then we also looked at our professional development structure. And we wanted to make sure that we were supporting our teachers in that way as well, right? It wasn't just targeted to one group of teachers, and it didn't matter where you were. We made sure that it was differentiated based on teachers' needs, right? Based on observation, evaluation, and coaching cycles that we put in place to support those teachers. And so we did that as well. And so now our teachers, within the instructional leadership team, they had senior team leads that was dedicated to them, and they had this model where they can get differentiated instruction. So it was different professional development that was going on Wednesdays. They can go to this one, they can go to that one. And then there was times that we did it all together, and it was led by our senior team leads, and them really saying, this is what we're seeing. And so within that instructional leadership model, we had our own data cycles, right? Which, we would look at the data, and we would look at video of teachers, and we would talk about what we saw, how we coached around it, and then we would get additional coaching within that session, whether it was bringing in other people from the district to help us with that, bringing in other people with a different level of expertise than our own. We made sure that we were trying to support our teachers that way. And then within the coaching cycles, we would go in and we would calibrate around that, make sure that we were seeing the same things, that we were working with the teachers. We decided that in our master schedule, we were going to build in right? This grade level PLCs, and then during our professional development, we can do some talks within that around data ourselves and talk about our next moves and what instructional strategies were in place. We were looking at a lot of different things, and so that's how we kind of embedded and did our systems, right? And I'm not gonna lie, and it wasn't easy at the beginning. There was a lot of like bumps and bruises along the way, but we managed to make some changes. Did it all go well and according to our plan? No. We constantly had to make some tweaks, and we had to evaluate. And so we built in measures to reevaluate what we were doing as well. We instituted the attendance team to make sure that they were out doing home visits, and then they were talking to parents and parents and keeping them engaged. We made sure that, like, we instituted Saturday school and looked at Saturday school different. Even with our Saturday schools, bringing in, asking our teachers and set aside money in the budget so our teachers can throughout the week, have their own tutoring sessions with kids, their one-on-ones and things after school. And then on Saturday schools, they could do some things within Saturday school. It wasn't a penalty no more to come to Saturday school because you weren't there or because it was disciplinary. It was more of like, if we're going to ask kids to come in on a Saturday, then we're going to give them some extra instructional support even on Saturday. And so all of these things started to get into play in the second year. And so even when we left the building, because as the administrative team, right? Because the district made a decision to consolidate the schools, cut down 2 administrative teams. So we left a legacy that allowed these kind of things to keep happening, right? So that it wasn't this. We would post data, so our kids got used to looking at their data and looking at their attendance and doing awards, and we were bringing in all these different incentives for them being in class and being engaged. And like, it wasn't just honor roll. It wasn't just, okay, hey seniors, this is what it needs to graduate, right? You need to have this certain stuff. We were using our advisory blocks, right, in a more constructive way around ICAP and that future planning. It was a lot of different things that we did, but that's how we did it. But it started with the assessment first. So we never took the time to assess what was working well, and we got to keep a lot of those things that we took from the previous administrations. We got to keep a lot of those things and do some tweaks to it, and we made it fit that, like, okay, students, this is what it is, but we're just going to redefine it, right? And then we're going to engage the community to make sure that they understand, and parents were always aware, whether it was through letters or robocalls or home visits or literacy and math nights or AP boot camp, whatever it was, like all these different things, taking them to different things. We made sure that our engagement was with parents and the community, and that the resources that we utilized was from our businesses right in that community as well. And so that's how we impacted. And then we had measurements every 6 weeks, right? Let's look at what's happening. If that's not going well, that's what we did to really institute the high quality teaching, right? To make sure our teachers were supported through PLCs and PD, differentiated all the way. They got that cross content area. They got that grade level like support, and we really worked with our district partners. We worked with everybody just to make sure that we implemented that. But it started with the assessment first and making sure we had the right people in the right places. And when we didn't, we made the tough decisions to say, bye, but we're going to make sure you get somewhere, and that was a better fit, but we put our kids first. And then if that meant that even we had to take a step back and look at ourselves, we looked at ourselves. But it always begins with an assessment, not the assessment. We did that. And that's how we instituted some systems and structures. And I know I probably went over the 3 to 5 minutes, but that's kind of what we did. And so I think that's what you have to do as an educational leader. You can't just go in and making sweeping changes when you haven't assessed what you have, and what's working well and what's not working well. And along the way, put those measurements in place and be honest about what that measurement is and what that data is telling you, and making some tough decisions even. And you have to do that as a leader. So I'm going to end with that, and I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you all in class tomorrow.